live.
You're now watching two old farts making noises.
Joe, do you want to know why some businesses succeed and some businesses fail? Why some businesses grow and some businesses don't? That's what this show is all about. Business, business, business.
All right. Good morning, Lost Dollar Business Club.
Woohoo! That's
Good
us.
morning, good morning. Yeah,
That's
Good
you,
morning.
gentlemen. That's right.
that always sounds like, a whole load of, central bank has been put against the wall and shot, didn't it, that last bit?
Oh no. Oh no.
All
Well,
the
that's
noise and everything.
yeah. We
Oh,
don't know.
sorry,
What's happening quite
is that
yet.
too early for that? Is that too early for that?
Well, we'll see, because we are going to talk about interest rate hikes on this show.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we'll see how that plays into it.
Yeah.
We'll also cover some of the data on, or maybe the lack of data on the impact, the negative impact of solar power and solar production on the environment. So that'll be a big topic for us.
Sure.
Yeah, and then what do we got? What else do we have? We have crypto and the central bank digital currencies, always a favorite topic.
And then we also have our lost and found at the very end.
And we have lost.
And this week we got good stuff for lost and found, so I can't wait.
Yeah,
So-
well, we just
Oh boy.
start the show like we normally do, guys. Here we go.
Oh,
Get the freedom and the flexibility of remote work in the lucrative tech industry. Bend your life around the world. Bandicoot is the premier course and community for thriving in a remote tech career. Join the revolution today. Bandicoot.com, official partner of the Lost Dollar Business Club. All right. Well, I'll give you an update on the on Bandicoot now that it came up in the ad. I really appreciate how the show has been supporting Bandicoot from the very beginning. It's been 10 months of work, and we're finally launching the actual course on August 1st. So this will be
Woohoo!
this show
Woo!
before it launches next week. So this is big news for us.
Cool.
Thank you,
Exciting
guys.
times.
Yeah.
Well, we wish you all the success with getting that up and running.
Thank you, Anagram. Thank you, Mr. Anagram.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
Graham.
my pleasure.
All right. Well, let's get started, because John brought this topic up on.
You mean the tired citizen? You mean that's who you?
That's
Yes,
right. That's
now
right.
he's
I'm
tired.
tired.
He's less angry than before.
Yeah.
He's tired out a little bit, but
All right,
Come on in,
John.
John.
but
Come
not
on,
enough
John.
to tell us about. Not tired enough to tell us about the lack of data coming out of China related to its solar energy production.
Yeah, so the article was talking about that the IEA and the IPCC, which is one is the IEA is the International Energy Agency, and the IPCC is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And
Say that three times fast.
yeah,
No.
they produce reports, studies, about the basically how dirty each energy source is, and solar panels have a very low carbon per kilowatt hour in the sort of 10, 20 grams per kilowatt hour. And a fellow, I guess a consulting outfit that's run by a young Italian guy, started looking into it, and he thought that the data didn't quite look right, and he started going into the source data. The source data for all of these reports is I call it a database company or a nonprofit out of Switzerland. It's called Echo Invent. And they claim to be the largest database out there on this type of data, clean and transparent. And the more he dug, he found that the Chinese, basically, the Chinese data was non-existent because
yeah.
China doesn't report this stuff. It's not available. The companies that actually produce the solar panels and the components to solar panels, don't produce the data, and so they've been modeling this, based on Western manufacturing data, which up till the mid 2000s, the 80% of all solar manufacturing was U.S., Japan, and Germany. Now talk about production today. In the last 15 years, the Chinese, are now 80% of all solar panel and solar panel components worldwide. Right?
That's right.
Solar, wafers, and other pieces of the panels. And the reason why he kept digging into this and saying the data was wrong is because the known dirty little secret of why China just came out of nowhere and said, "Whoa, we're dominating the whole thing," is they have cheap energy, which a lot of countries, in the West are sort of self-emulating the
Well, it's cheap
anyway.
and dirty,
Cheap and dirty, yeah.
Energy,
The bulk of the energy is from coal production,
right.
Energy, electricity that's produced from coal, and so when you include that in the calculus, you go from, say, 20 grams of per kilowatt hour to something like 150, 170, and it begins to, at that level, compared to natural gas. So policies that are are based on these reports from these two, from the EIA and the IPCC, which are based on data from the Swiss outfit, which the Swiss, don't have real Chinese data because it's just not available, and they're not gonna get it. Produce all sorts of wonderful numbers that are not really the reality of what's out there, and so.
And this is a shock. Why?
No, it's not a shock. Why? Well, it is, because policies are formulated and money is spent in the gazillions based on faulty data and the belief that we're producing something that's cheap and clean, and it really isn't.
So basically, since the beginning of time, it's the same bad data, and governments throw money at it, and business just does whatever they do blindly. So yeah, it's the same stuff, right? So this is not a shock, but that's what I'm saying. It's like when we had Michael.
To the average person, I would think.
Yeah, the average person is stupid. Full stop. Let's just be blunt. If most people are idiots, they just get led around by their noses. They don't have a clue. But I mean, we talked about this with Michael Collins last week about China. Right? It's like the State Department is shocked that China's not doing. Seriously? Have you read the history? Have you looked at the last 50 years? I mean, like a 5-year-old can read a book and know this. So, I mean, I appreciate what John's saying, and it's terrible. But really, at the end of the day, it's not even a shock anymore. And like
people shouldn't be making decisions based on the fact that this data is completely inaccurate and has been.
Then you can never make a decision on this planet because everything is inaccurate. There's nothing that's factual on the planet Earth. Full stop. I mean, one thing.
And what are these people doing in their nice plush office in Zurich? Probably enjoying lots of a good life, giving all us reports about it's made with coal, coal production, burning coal for coal energy. So what? Are we so righteous? It's only because we seem to have run out of coal that we're bitching about the fact that countries like China are still using it. We had every opportunity to use it, and we did. And most of the climate problems, have come from burning that. Now all of a sudden we become super righteous about it, and shocked that other people are using coal.
Well, it's but it's not. It's maybe not shocking that they're using coal. I think everybody knows that China's using coal, but I think the issue is people are assuming that these solar panels that come out of China are actually greener than they are, and they're not. They're not greener. They're not cleaner.
Wait, excuse me. What idiot thinks this? What idiot on the planet Earth thinks that their panels, the people that give battery acid to the toppling fish to sell to Americans, what idiot thinks the Chinese panels are better built than, I don't know, panels that they make them in the U.S.? I doubt. But seriously, really, we think it's better built in China? Seriously, who?
Or cleaner built. I mean, people will think it's cleaner built.
Stop it, please. It's China. Let's just enough's enough. Let's stop.
They weren't built any cleaner when they were done in Germany. It's just that the Germans were.
But those are the Nazis. I trust them more than I trust the Chinese right now.
They were just a bit slow on the uptake, you know. And while they were asleep and getting tied up with European red tape, the Chinese took the market from them. Oh,
yeah, but they do everything kind of half. I don't mean this in a bad way, but they kind of do everything half-ass, and they don't have a lot of regulation.
The Germans or the Chinese?
No, the Chinese. The Nazis build things to last forever. I'm like, please, you know, I think we still have a coffee machine that was built in 1932 by Krupp. Okay, so but the thing is that the Chinese are kind of like, they just throw things together. I'm surprised smartphones last as long as they do, and Apple MacBooks last as long as they do. But maybe they have better quality control. But
they have much better quality control,
right? But overall, their stuff is built like crap, and they know it because cheap labor. They ship it. They don't care. And their environmental thing, we talked about this before the show. And the FT, there's an article today that talks about how China is screwing up the global climate talks. And the guy and people that don't want to be identified said the guy from China is a one-man wrecking crew, making sure that we can't agree on anything. He's like, no, that's not right. That's not this. So
we know that they play.
So just not a shocker.
In this case, they're playing the usual sort of strategy, which is cheap coal-fired energy, mass government subsidies for strategic industries, and human labor operating in poor working conditions.
That's
right. So
doesn't that sound like Europe and the Americas?
No, it sounds like the staff at the Lost Dollar Business Club. We give them those same conditions, and we have signs on their desk that says the beatings are continuing until your attitude changes here. So it works that way.
Yeah. So, the thing is, we're addicted to cheap, and you know when it's cheap, we sort of look the other way.
What are we asking them for, John? We're asking them for consumables, things to consume, and that's what they do. They make all the stuff we consume. We go and buy our Happy Meal, and we get a nice little plastic toy in it. Happy days. Sorry,
I love this plastic.
Oh my God! I mean, the U.S. is the world's largest consumer. That says enough, right? Your entire economy is based around consumption. You know, if you want to consume that much, it's going to have to be cheap. It's going to have to be cheap. It's just going to have to be good enough. It isn't going to be great. It isn't going to be perfect. It's going to be good enough. And that's what the Chinese create. Good enough.
Good enough. That's right. Yeah.
Well, and that's the problem, right? Because at the end of the day, you guys are so far away. I like that. Oh, now you're close. But at some point, we have to take a stand. And that goes to Michael Collins' point, from the CEOs down to the housewives. And nobody does, because it's all about, I can get it cheaper. I don't want cheap. I want the best that I can buy for what I can afford. And for some people, yes, that'll be a Chinese product. For other people, it'll be something else. But if China doesn't want to play ball, then maybe it's time we say, okay, and I hate to say this, maybe we need to become a little more isolationist instead of being like, oh, China this, China that. Like if we brought stuff back to the States, it wouldn't be so bad.
It would be wonderful to have more independence by creating manufacturing in the United States. The largest economy on the planet.
Right.
But there's also the reality that so much of our supply chain comes from places like China, and particularly China, or comes from these cheap labor places. And the question is, how do you decouple from these economies that are obviously very bad for the overall health of our country?
Well, here's another thing
I'm sure there's a lot of small town Americas, small towns in America who would be thinking, oh, wouldn't it be really nice to have a nice plastic factory so we can make little plastic toys to go into the Happy Meal? I mean, that's going to advance you. That's going to advance everybody, isn't it?
Oh my God, you don't even know. I'm going to buy a Happy Meal because they have better toys.
Yeah.
There was an article.
You're talking about shifting the viewpoint of
Right.
what people want to buy and what people want to consume.
But anyway, to do that, Michael, really is to just on anything from Chinese and then just see what happens when the sticky brown stuff hits the wall.
Because, yeah, but the other thing, which you're forgetting,
America's addicted to this consumption of cheap.
Here's what you're forgetting. There was an article again in the FP. I don't know why they're not a sponsor. But anyway, there's an article in the FT that I should we mentioned them enough. That and in The Economist. But anyway, the FT had an article a couple of weeks ago that said, as everyone's getting mad at China now, like we have to leave China. China's no good. It's a terrible place. But yeah, whatever. Everyone now is going over to India. So it's not even like we're like, hey, I have an idea. We're going to pull our stuff from China. Let's put it in. I'm not trying to be offensive to any city, state, or whatever, like in Alabama or Kentucky or New York or pick a place. Don't care. But they're like, let's go to India. As far as I know, and I'm not a real map guy, but India, as far as I know, is not part of the United States or North America. So as they talk about all this, I'm kind of like, okay, so you're going to go from one frying pan and jump yourself into another frying pan and wait for the next 10 or 20 years, it'll be fine. And then
the difference is, Stephen, is that you can understand the language of the Indian frying pan. So there is, you can actually communicate with people.
You'll run into the same problem of, you still
let's not forget one little thing. It's called U.S. debt that a country like China kind of owns. You know what I mean?
In the trillions.
It's like, try and sneak out of that bed without them noticing. You know what I mean? It's like not going to happen, right?
Well, Japan owns a lot of our debt too, and
not as much as China. I think if I'm not mistaken, it goes. I want to say China, India. I think even Russia, Germany, and then Japan. I think Japan's they're in the top 5, but I think the others own more of it.
Okay. No, the Russians don't own much of our debt.
They used to. Oh yeah, John. They used to own tons of our debt.
They did used to.
Okay, so they're not anymore. Okay. I stand corrected. John knows everything.
The Russians are so rich; they're giving all their grain away.
Yeah.
So
it's flooding the market. Yeah. I don't know. It's just this is just. Anytime I hear something about China now and people are shocked by it, I'm like, seriously? Read a book.
I'm not shocked, but it's the idea that we need to realign and get real with all of these subsidies that are being driven into basically sending money into the Chinese market, into the Chinese solar panel market for things that are not as green as the Western world claims that it is.
But they're green when they come back, though. That's the thing.
Yes,
that's
green when they come back.
It's a matter of perspective. We've just had a lot of green things, well, actually black, put on our roof, and they came all the way from where did they come from now? Where did they come from? They came from China. That's right. That's why we had to wait for 3 or 4 months to get the damn things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Could you read the instructions though?
They're definitely not green. They're black.
Right. Okay. Yes, we know that.
So
but that's the thing. I mean, you look at is everybody. It's pretty amazing to me that the IEA and the IPCC are basing their assumptions on such flimsy and clearly inaccurate data. And these are supposed to be massive organizations that are leading the charge for safe climate change and clean climate change.
Yeah.
And it's just
nice plush offices in Switzerland. Yeah. That's what they're leading the charge.
I mean, that's the reality. Yeah. But I think people really rely on what these guys say. And this opens up just one, if they're wrong in this area where they're getting no data from China and making assumptions based on Western processes rather than the Chinese processes, where else is their data flawed for the sake of greenwashing or for the sake of making the green revolution more palatable?
I agree, but we all know it's flawed. So it's a grain of salt type of thing. It's like, let's flip a coin. It's either A or B.
Kurt and I used to work for a gentleman who always used to say to us, "You know what assumption is." Remember, Kurt? You always said.
The thing is,
there was a time when people.
The thing is that when when politicians make decisions that involve lots of taxpayer money, you have to wonder why they're doing it, and if as Steve says it's so obvious, then why are we doing this? So there's a bigger agenda to push this going to zero carbon world, which is totally unrealistic.
Well, China says you're going to be zero carbon by 2060. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so, because you can't even agree at like a conference now what it should or shouldn't be. So I think this going green thing, is a lot of mental masturbation. I'm full stop. And because electric cars take actually more energy than petro, right? And this takes more energy than this. And so really at the end of the day, what we should do is come up with like Nikola Tesla, free energy, solar, things that really work. But the stuff that they're doing is like they're literally putting a Band-Aid on the dike. Sorry, ladies. But and that's a terrible thing, because no one's really trying to do anything. It's all like, I'm going to be, some people are looking at, I'll be dead in 100 years. I'm going to make as much money as I can while I'm here. And that's how I look at all this crap about we're going green and we're doing this and it's all a bunch of BS. And no one's going to convince me differently until somebody comes and says, even Elon Musk, what he's doing, all BS, all for his pocket, as far as I'm concerned, because it doesn't matter. What? What happened? Is that blasphemy? Hey, Elon, I got your pocket right here. So, but I'm just saying, it's that as far as I'm concerned, that's it.
Well, I think you pointed out something really important is Nikola Tesla wasn't trying to monetize it. All right.
Correct.
And because everybody's trying to monetize it, they're trying to find ways in which they can monetize it. And all of those involve doing the exact opposite of what they say they're trying to achieve. Right.
That's true.
It's like
Nicholas
if you
wanted
put
to do
the
it for
word
free.
free, if you put the word free and America together, it is an oxymoron, isn't it? I mean,
it might explode if you put the two together.
It's just unfortunately it's just crazy. And I listen to these talking heads on TV, or I read an article.
Good old fashioned greed.
I'll give you a really good scenario here, and you'll make you kind of chuckle. Here we've got a company called Enbridge, which owns the grid, right? And Canada's pushing, has been pushing for a while for greener energy, and they've got this greener homes program where they want everybody to switch over to heat pumps, and i.e. my business, and get rid of all the carbon emission and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's all well and good and gets everybody cheering, except for the fact that Enbridge, the company that owns the grid, has got a contract until 2035 to switch all of the gas meters over, right, to new meters. Well, I'm not a mathematician, but that doesn't work with the math, because usually when you invest that much money in just changing meters, you're not planning on not using them. So all this is a bunch of hooey at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. But it's the same thing with the grid. Like, I mean, I have a friend of mine in Napa Valley in California. He owns a vineyard, and he has like a mega solar farm just for his vineyard. And his electric bill, like he said, went to like $25,000 a month down to like $200. And he said he remembers when the utility came out, and he's like, I could sell you back. I could do that, and you're like, we don't have the infrastructure. And I mean, like he said, they have the infrastructure for a little bit, but he's like, so he had to get what they call like an ice box, which just holds your excess power. Yeah. And I was like, okay. So he's like, he says, Steve, I'm great. He says, I would love to sell it back. But, as we do all this and people are like, oh, you'll sell it back to the grid and no, you won't. The grid's not made that way yet. It's a one-way street. So it's nice that you tell people this. If I would put solar power on my house, I have no problem with that, because I know it'll cut my bill. When I lived in Palm Beach at our house, we had solar power on the roof, and it was to heat the pool. And I know when that happened, we watched our bill drop say $75 a month. We do have it's Palm Beach. We have priorities. Of course we have priorities. Listen, I didn't touch it. The butler touched it, but it worked from what I understand. Anyway, my point is I'm okay with it, but don't sell the American people a line of crap that you're going to buy back, and unless you can prove to me that your grid is going to hold it. Because if everybody gets solar tomorrow, what happens to the power companies?
Like, you're not going to make money.
Yeah.
Well,
So
you
know
wouldn't
what
have
I'm saying?
brownouts. You wouldn't have brownouts if they did that, right? Because
Yeah.
the big issue here is it's all well and good to say, hey, let's get solar panel, let's get heat pumps and electric cars. We don't have the power to do anything about it. We'd shut down in 5 minutes everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, Kurt, isn't it true that heat pumps in even in northern U.S., certainly not in Canada, crap out with cold weather, that they're useless?
Well,
Right?
you can get two versions. One is a cold climate, and the other one's your standard ones. The standard ones, they will always preach, can go down to like -20, -25. No chance.
Right.
They basically lose their ability to produce enough heat right around -18. Cold climate ones, probably, if you get a really good one and it's well installed, you'll hit about -22. Right. So basically it's 9 months out of the year here, and maybe more over in the US.
Yeah.
But they're an enormous cost, aren't they? And again, one of the issues we have here.
They use chemicals that could leach into the soil if they break, and own issue.
Climate change.
You know, just like the IEA saying that they don't consider the waste that comes from silicon mining for solar panels and the toxic panel waste after they've left the useful period of its life. So if you don't consider those things, sure, they seem green, but they're not. So.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other problem is that if we were to go heat pump, I'm talking about where I'm living now in Holland, heat pump, solar panels, which we just had put on the roof, and we do the whole shebang. So we give us an A, which is like the top, insulated, the whole green. That's an investment of somewhere between 45 and 50,000 euros.
Wow, that's like almost real money in America.
The payoff is what, 15 years?
Yeah, what's the payoff?
Yeah, well, how are you going to get that money out? Because they're slowly reducing the payback here to get your money back out again. And if I had an electric car, I can't store energy. I can't store the electricity to use it to put in my car, because everything which is generated in a day, we have to use in the day. If not, it's gone.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I have a friend who put solar panels on his house, I don't know, 10 years ago. He said he's just breaking even. So it took him 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
That's with a subsidy. Right?
He's very lucky.
Yeah.
He's very lucky because the technology just isn't there yet. It doesn't matter which way you go. All of these initiatives, they're all wonderful, and everybody would gladly invest in them if A, they made sense from a financial point of view, that everybody could afford them, and B, if they actually delivered.
That's right.
They don't.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, talking about delivery, let's talk about the new news out of the Fed. One of my favorite subjects. So the Fed raised the rate again by 25 bips or whatever, and it's the highest it's been for 22 years. So for all these people that are like got in the market like 20 years ago and think they're really doing well, welcome to the real world now. Welcome to the 80s. So, and we said before the show, kind of tongue in cheek, that this is going to be like the Reagan era. We're going to see rates at like 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18%. And unfortunately, there's no Paul Volcker to help us. And that actually gets it. So what do you guys think?
How do you think it's going to go that high?
One more time?
Go ahead, David.
No, I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to go that high. And but I also think it's incredibly naive that people, that we can continue in a world where there's, by nearly zero interest. You can't run any form of money lending whole society we live in. Like borrow money or investors, and they want a return, etc., etc. You can't do that on 0 or 1%.
Why not?
It's just not possible. So it's not possible. It's just not possible to do it.
But you could do it. But you can do it on 3 to 5%. But people are greedy, and the banks are greedy, and now the Fed is like listening to their overlords, and that's it. They're like, okay, let's keep bringing the rates up and bringing the rates up. And it'll
Yeah,
be,
but I mean,
like I said, it'll be 15% and everyone will be happy.
Yeah, but I mean, what they're going to do? It's going to go up, and then they'll bring it back down again. So, oh, look
No, not this
look
group.
Look at the wonderful job we're doing. We're looking after everybody. You know, we just increased it to slow things down.
Yeah, but why do you think? Why do you think Volcker would have helped us if he were still around?
Because of what he did. He did a lot in that. John will go through this, but I think I did in the 80s. If you look at what he did, and he stuck to his guns, and he had a plan, and he kind of told you what the plan was. Here, like I read the FOMC notes and whatever, and I'm reading it like I don't think they have a plan. Volcker came in, had a plan, understood what needed to be done, and he even said like it's going to be painful, but here's what's going to happen, and it happened, and he had a plan. I don't know if these guys have a plan. I don't think Woody Allen, aka Janet Yellen, has a clue. And she's very nice, and I like hearing her because she reminds me of Woody. And I just don't think these guys just get it when they're doing stuff. And it's shocking to me that they're not telling anybody like, here's our long-term plan. It seems like the plan is like quarter to quarter, month to month, day to day. I'm like, that's not what Volcker did.
They said that they would do this meeting to meeting. They're making
and that's not how you run an economy. I mean, maybe it is today, but not back in the day.
No. In a banana republic, yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, look, I mean, I don't know. The way I look at it is, they're data dependent. They got themselves in a pickle because they brought rates down for, to what they call the zero bound for, for what, 10 years, 11 years, and everything went up to the moon, right? The stocks went up, housing went up, all sort of financial assets went up through the roof. So now we're at the point where they have to reverse that, and so they've raised from 0 to now 5.25, 5.5. We don't have a recession because when you raise interest rates, a whole bunch of people start making a whole lot of money that they didn't make that they were making zero on. It's the upper side of the society that makes but eventually that gets spent, and so we don't have a recession. Now everybody's thinking that we're going to have either a very shallow one or no recession. Who knows, right? At some point, maybe they stop at say 5.75.
I think you're wrong. I think it's going higher.
Everybody is already readjusting, right? Home sales, that had sort of been stuck for like the last 5 months. Now they're on the positive side. So eventually, the people that have the 2 to 3% mortgage might be eventually forced to move if they need to move, and people have readjusted. So it's just.
But what's happening in home sales, though, John, which is interesting, because we were looking for houses here, and the houses prices I've noticed now are dropping, because before, when the interest rates were like free, the people were adding an extra whatever they were adding to their home because people were like, oh, it's no big deal. Now that the interest rates are going up, like there's a house prices just keep going drop because people can't afford it with the mortgages, or they can't this or that. So it's very interesting how it's working.
Maybe those prices are more realistic than the inflated prices they were previously.
I agree. Yeah, I think so. John's on mute. I love him this way. John, speak, please.
Yeah,
no. Damn it.
Yeah. Well,
the
eventually, at some point, when pricing is unaffordable and you need to sell, at some point you're going to say, well, all right, I'll bring it down 5%, and the neighbor also says, well, I need to move because I need to move to Florida or something. All right, I'll bring it down. And so locally in different markets, you'll have pricing that either stays the same or comes down at some level. Right?
I agree. Well, here's the other thing you guys brought up before the show. You were saying because now interest rates and all this other stuff, everyone was talking about the crypto, and then the central bank comes up with their digital.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot which one of you was saying crypto is going to take off again. And I'm saying no, because now the US is really cracking down on it. And yesterday, yes, once again in the Financial Times, there was an article about how the biggest venture capital companies now are pulling their investments from crypto because they don't believe in it. It was a great Ponzi scheme for a while, and that was it.
Maybe that's going to be a subject for next week, guys, because I can see the time ticking on, and we've got the other important part of the show to do. So maybe we can come back to that next week.
We can. All right, we can get on the crypto train. The anti-central bank digital currency train.
Yeah, Michael's all for crypto, by the way. He's a communist, and so that's okay.
If you like the Lost Dollar Business Club, you should subscribe. If you like it that much, you should also tell a friend of yours. So you should subscribe and like. Also, you should put comments below so we know what you're thinking. Tell us what shows you